Good morning, Year 5 and 6. Today we're going to look at the last few pages of Rose Blanche and have a go at writing the story, the narrative to those pages. So our learning intention is, can I write a descriptive third-person narrative? Much of the work we've done has been from Rose's perspective, so we've been writing in first person. Today we're talking about what happens in the town, what happens to Rose and her mother, and we're going to be writing in the third person. So when we're referring to Rose, we might use her name or say the pronoun she or her rather than the I, me, my. We're also going to be writing the narrative to the pictures. Now, the pictures themselves have a small bit of text at the top of the page, but that isn't enough to tell the whole story. The picture book we've got relies upon the image and the small amount of text to tell us the story. You're going to write the story as if the person you're giving the story to doesn't have the picture. You need to use your lovely descriptive language and paint a picture in their head with the words you use. I know you can do this because we've had a lot of practice of using descriptive language over the past couple of weeks. So you will have the pictures in front of you, and I'm going to go through them with you in a minute so we can talk about some of the detail. Remember, you can pause the video at any time, and if there's some words that you think, oh, I want to scribble them down now so I remember them when I'm doing my writing, that's absolutely fine. In fact, it's probably a really good idea to get a pen and pencil ready now. Remember, because it's a video, you can pause, rewind it, listen. So remember, you're going to use your words to paint the picture in the head of your reader. I know that you can do this because you've practiced that descriptive writing. You also will have the text available to you, and you can magpie ideas from the author to include in your own writing. But it will take more than the words that the author has used to explain what's going on in the pictures. The other thing that's really important is that we're keeping up our skills of actually handwriting our work. I know sometimes it's a little bit tempting to type everything up as we're working, but today I want you to make a particular effort to handwrite your work. Now, we're going to be working on this narrative again tomorrow, and so you don't need to make it flying high perfect. I just need you to make it so that you can read what you have written so that we can work on the language tomorrow, and we're going to edit and improve and revise our work tomorrow before we think about doing a final copy. So here is the next picture of the book. Yesterday, when we were looking at our emotion graph, we got to the point where Rose had been feeding the children, and we'd also seen the tired soldiers coming back through the town as Rose was sneaking out at night to take food up to the camp. So this is the next picture. Then, one morning, the whole town decided to leave. People were frightened. They carried bags and furniture and pets. They loaded wheelbarrows and carts. The mayor was one of the first to leave. He had taken off the bright armband he had once been so proud of. That was the day that Rose Blanche disappeared. Her mother searched frantically for her all over the emptying town. She asked everyone she met if they'd seen her daughter. She's probably with friends ahead, they told her. Don't worry, pack your bags and come with us. So let's have a look. What can we see within the picture that we might need to describe for our reader? So we can see there's the mayor who's taken off his armband, but we can see wounded soldiers coming through the town, rushing away here. They're all coming away from through the town and out the other side. There's people with lots of bags on top of their cars, packages on their bicycles, carts with things in. People are just grabbing whatever they can, bundling it up and getting on the road. Look, somebody here's even taking their cows with them because that's something they own. Now it says this was the day that Rose Blanche disappeared, and her mother searched frantically for her. So you might need to talk about her mum asking people, she's asking people, have you seen my daughter? And if we're thinking about what they said, she's probably with friends, ahead. Don't worry, pack your bags and come with us. So it might be that's what she did. But if someone's doing the speech, remember, we might need to put that in our inverted commas, the either side. So we're actually punctuating our speech. But the speech words are already there for you, so you haven't got to think about what they might say. There's quite a lot of detail here. As children are looking a little scared. People are being a bit tearful. Heavy bags are being carried between two people. So you might want to think about how you put some of that in your story to help people understand what's going on. And this is the next image. So this is going on at the same time, but outside of the town. Thick fog shrouded the forest and was hard. It was hard to find the way. Rose's feet were muddy and frozen. Her clothes were torn, and at last she arrived at her usual place. She stood by the clearing as though in a dream. Everything was so different. It was hard to think clearly. Wow. Now, if this is where she's normally standing to feed the children, can you see the contrast with what we saw yesterday? So you can talk about where once the camp had stood was broken metal bars, fence posts, barbed wire, a solitary blue flower. And then over here, you see she's standing there, not really sure what to do. You might want to write something about what emotions you think are going through her head there. Behind her were figures moving through the fog. In fact, you can just see them, just in shadow there in the fog, sort of misty. Tired and fearful soldiers saw danger everywhere. So they're not really seeing clearly, and this is what happens next. As Rose Blanche turned to walk away, there was a shot, a sharp and terrible sound which echoed against the bare trees. Oh, what do you think might have happened? These are the fearful soldiers. So these are those German soldiers, and they look like they're retreating. Because at the same time as this is going on, it says, meanwhile, there were different soldiers passing through the little town. Their language was strange, their uniform unfamiliar. And though they were tired, they were cheerful. The war was almost over. So look, we've got soldiers coming in. They don't look quite so, they're tired, but they don't look quite so downbeaten as the other soldiers, do they? And you might notice there's a red star here. I can give you a little bit of history help here. These are the Russian Red Army coming in. So they were helping to defeat the German army. So these soldiers back here are the retreating Germans. The ones that at the very start of our book, we saw all triumphant going off to fight for Germany, are coming back fearful, and they see danger everywhere. And then that shot rings out. And then we have these other soldiers are coming into the town, and you'll see everywhere's boarded up. And it looks like all the people have fled, doesn't it? It says the war was almost over. So Germany at this point is almost defeated. There's quite a lot going on here. There's a lot of soldiers. They're smiling. You could describe their uniforms. You could describe here, look, what's happened to some of the houses here. The houses we had earlier that were a bit ramshackle anyway are completely broken down now. So there's obviously been some fighting here, hasn't there? When the people have fled the town. This is the last image. It says, Rose Blanche's mother never found her little girl. As the weeks went by, another, gentler invasion began. The cold retreated, fresh grasses advanced across the land. There were explosions of colour. Trees put on their bright new uniforms and paraded in the sun. Birds took up their positions and sang their simple message. Spring had triumphed. So again, if you look, this is where Rose was standing, and we've got basically spring has sprung. We've got trees and plants where once the camp had stood. But what do you think happened to Rose? This is where you get to tell this last bit of the tale. Using your descriptive words and what you want to say, I want you to write the narrative to these pages. I'm just going to go back to them again so you can see. So we've got this first one, the people leaving the town, the soldiers, defeated soldiers coming through the town, Rose going out to the camp to find it's all broken down, and these fearful soldiers coming through, and then a terrible sound echoes through the trees. And then these red army soldiers coming through, and they're cheerful because the war is almost over, so it looks like these are triumphant, whereas the German soldiers are not winning. And then this suggestion that Rose's mum never found her little girl. And as the weeks went by, all this greenery overgrew where all it had been broken down, and it had all that sort of mud and desolation, and now we've got all the plants growing again, covering up all the scars on the landscape. I wonder what you can make of all of that. I really look forward to reading your work, but don't send it in yet. Wait till tomorrow when we're going to talk about how we can structure our work, how we can make sure we've got the best words and the best punctuation to make it really clear for a reader. I'll speak to you again tomorrow.